everyone, and welcome to Pathfinder Leadership. I'm your host, LP. This is Season 1, Episode 4. Today we're going to talk about humility, strength or weakness. Some of the folks that I know that have listened to this podcast have told me they're not sure when I'm posting these videos or uploading the podcast, so I would recommend that you like and subscribe to whatever you get your podcast through, whether it be Apple Podcast or Spotify, YouTube. Like it, subscribe. That way you get notifications whenever I upload something. Also, I would ask that you all share this podcast with your friends, share it on social media so we can get the message out there. I do appreciate friends and family that are supporting and listening to this podcast, but I also think that there could be folks out there that could be your friends or acquaintances that would benefit from hearing the message that we're going to talk about, not only today, but in the future. So share it on social media, tell your friends about it. Let's see if we can not only get numbers up. It's not about the numbers as much as it is the message. If we can get other folks engaged in learning to be better leaders, whether it be in law enforcement or in the business world or as parents, as people, I think this is going to benefit not only, the place you work, your family life, and, this is a big reach here, but the world in general. You start small and start making changes. And as those changes grow, you can start seeing the butterfly effect as it goes out into the world. Now, I have had to stop this recording several times because my computer keeps getting hacked. Wonderful. So excited about that. But it is the hand that I'm dealt right now. And you'll notice that this podcast wasn't released as quickly as the others have. I've been traveling for training, been out of town, sleeping in dorm rooms, driving 30 hours over the past 3 months. Been a little bit of a struggle. So my wife has stood by me and made sacrifices with me being gone, and I'm very appreciative of her for that. Now, I stated earlier that we're going to talk about humility. Is it a strength or a weakness? Now, I want you to, again, close your eyes and imagine. If you're driving, don't do that. But what is the first thing that you think of when you hear the word humility? Just think about that for a minute. Is the first thing that comes to your mind a picture of someone who is timid or weak? Or is it someone who is confident in their abilities, but does not have to peacock out and make everyone believe that they're better than they are? Think about that just for a moment. So the Oxford Dictionary defines humility as the quality of having a modest view of one's value or importance. So does that mean that you don't believe in your abilities? No, it doesn't. It just means that you have a realistic view of what your abilities are, what your value is. You have a realistic view of that. You're not overly confident, you're not overly cocky, but you're right there in the middle. You know that you're not an underachiever or you're not an overachiever, or at least you don't portray that in everyone else's vision of you. As a leader, having humility is extremely important. I want you to think about a leader you might have had who was wrong or had came up with this grandiose idea for success, but was not able to take criticism or advice on how to modify that idea in order to make it successful. So, if you are not able to humble yourself enough to be told that you are wrong or you're doing something wrong, you're going to fail as a leader. You need to be able to listen to the voice of the people who you serve. Now, are there times when we, as leaders, must portray confidence? Absolutely. Just because you're confident doesn't mean that you're cocky, right? You have to have that balance. Like in anything in life, there is the balance that needs to be made. If you're going in for a promotion and you're trying to get promoted, you need to show confidence. You also need to be able to explain that you are willing to listen to other people's opinions and to give them the proper merit that, they deserve. So consider this. If you're training a new leader in your agency or in your business world, where would you rank humility on those scales, say 1 through 10, of values that would be important to a leader? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I believe that humility is the number one value that a leader needs, but I do believe that it's up there. Um, I would definitely put it in the top 10 because you need to be able to pivot and change, and be able to accept that you may not be doing everything correctly or there may be a better way to do something. So is it a strength or a weakness? I think for the most part, having humility, being a humble person, is a strength because it's much easier to take credit for something and to puff out your chest and tell everyone, look at me, than it is to give credit where it's due, accept when you're wrong about something, and have a realistic view of what you're able to do, and to not feel that urge to have that narcissistic urge of look at me, look at me. You need to be able to dial that back and look at things from other people's perspective. So I want to talk to you a little bit about an article that I read in Psychology Today. It was published back in 2020 by Dr. Anna Schaffner. And it says, "What is humility and why is it important?" That's the title. I'll put the link into the description so you guys can take a look at the full article if you want to. So, one of the three major points that she brought up, the first one was humility involves recognizing our limitations and valuing others' perspectives, fostering personal growth and connection. So, to me, what that's saying is we recognize where we fall short and we value other people's opinions. And doing so, by valuing those other opinions and showing people the humility of we don't know everything, you're going to build that personal growth and connection with your coworkers or uh, folks that you serve. So humility is extremely important when it comes to leadership. So the practice of humility, which is her next point, it enhances well-being by promoting openness to feedback and reducing defensiveness. So as we talk about in previous episodes about letting your ego go, that's one of the big parts of humility is not having an ego when it comes to someone pointing out something is wrong. Um, I have worked for people who will tell you this is how we're going to do it, this is what we're going to carry out, this is what we're going to get done, and then everything sounds good till you get in the middle of it, and then you're like, whoop, hey, we need to modify this a little bit because this and this and this is happening, and it's creating some turmoil, and I think it would run smoother if you did this. Well, no, we're not going to do that because I've already done all the research, and this is what we're going to do because blah blah blah. Well, sir or ma'am, as I'm telling you, this is not effective because we're running into these obstacles. We can still achieve the same goal if we can modify it to A, B, and C. Had that person been able to be humble and say, okay, we're still going to achieve the same goal if we modify this, which is ultimately what we want. It's not 100% the way that I would have done it. Then that creates that buy in and connection with that person, and the team no longer suffers as greatly when that modification can be made. It shows that you're willing to be malleable, to change, and to be fluid with a situation. And at the end of the day, you've achieved the same goal that you set out to do in the beginning. So, what does it hurt to take someone else's opinion and apply it to your initial idea? The only thing it's going to hurt is your pride. If you are so egotistical that you believe that it has to be done your way or that there's no other way to be done, then you're failing. And when I say, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, that you're failing or you need to stop doing this, yes, you can stop behavior, you can modify behavior and improve yourself. That's the importance of this podcast, is to be able to improve yourself, to make yourself better, as well as it is to make myself better. Um, but taking that ego out of things and working together as a team to, reach a common goal, that reduces the defensiveness. It also reduces defensiveness that they may have. If in the past that you've been really strict on this is the way we're going to do things, and then all of a sudden they come into you and present to you an idea, and you say, that's a good idea, let's go with that. That's going to reduce that defensiveness. But if you're continuously driving it down people's throats that you're not willing to change and that your way is the best and only way, people will stop coming to you and people will stop helping you achieve the goals that you need. The goals that your division, your department needs are going to suffer because of your ego. Because your inability to be humble and to practice humility. So one of the next ones is cultivating humility can strengthen relationships and improve leadership by encouraging collaboration and empathy. So that's what we were just talking about. You're encouraging collaboration with your team by saying, hey, I value your opinion. I'm not always right. And the information that you're giving will be able to achieve the goal that we set out to do. And it creates that buy-in to the idea. So think about that. Think about the importance of practicing humility. So I want you to take time this week, get your notebook out, and write down a list of things. You know, we talked about in the past about your fears and how you can conquer those fears, etc. I want you to think about how are you currently practicing humility. If you're not, that's okay. We're start anew today. If you aren't, what I would like for you to do is how can you practice humility? And I can assure you that if you're not practicing humility, there has been numerous occasions where you could have. So there's going to be spots that you can improve. And I want you to just note to the side, you know, Sally came to me the other day and she wanted me to be more flexible on this topic so that we could, you know, achieve our goal. She had a good idea for it. So, how can I practice humility and show her that her idea was valuable and then put that into practice? So, you can make yourself a little note to the side of that and be prepared that when the new week starts, that you're ready to go and ready to practice humility. Now, if you have identified during this process in the last, uh, 18, 20 minutes of this lesson that you've been kind of a stickler to your way or no way, then there may be some bridges that need to be mended. So think about this truly deeply before you go all in on it. But are you willing to commit to being humble and practicing humility? If you are, and that is the road that you are willing to take to improve yourself on your leadership journey, then you may need to go and mend those bridges, which means go to your team, not only as a group, but individually, and let them know, hey, I have made some mistakes. I have identified weaknesses in my own performance when it comes to um, not being as fluid and taking other people's opinions um, into the process. And I've identified that, and I want to work to make it better. And I want to make sure that you all are valued, and the information that you're giving me actually gets incorporated into what we do. So meet with everyone individually, and then follow it up with a team meeting, or vice versa. But I do think there's importance to both. You need to have that personal one on one connection, because I can assure you that if you have slotted someone individually when they brought to you ideas or modifications, those are going to probably be one of your biggest adversaries when it comes to getting this humility journey up and running. So you want to make sure that you have mended whatever fences that are in between you and that person or people. So we're going to take just a moment break, and then when I come back, we're going to talk about some of the training that I went through in this last couple of weeks, or 3 months actually, but what has delayed me on the release of this podcast. All right, stick around. All right, everyone, welcome back. So, in the last 3 months, I have taken part in a training through the North Carolina Justice Academy called the Leadership Institute. It's a 120-hour course, and that is divided up into 3-week sessions. And for me, it was a challenging experience because there was a lot of travel and being away from home. And there was a thing called the challenge course that was extremely challenging. When we talked about facing our fears back of this, one of my fears, when I was telling you don't worry about talking about fear of bears and lions, etc., one of my fears is heights. Absolutely terrified of heights. I was asked during this specific course to climb up a 12-foot extension ladder, roughly, and climb up on a wooden rock wall. I'm doing the air quotes there. In order to get up this tower, right? Well, I got to the top of the ladder, which was an achievement in its own right, and got over to the telephone pole to climb up to this additional telephone pole that was braced horizontally across, and I got almost up to the horizontal telephone pole before I completely locked up. So, wasn't a complete failure, but disappointed in the fact that I didn't do more to. I mean, I challenged myself because that was a lot more than what I wanted to do. But not to go into the full psychology behind why I'm scared of heights, but let's just say there was a game played when I was a child that I may not have thought was much of a game, and it involved me hanging over a banister by my feet. Uh, so while I screamed uncontrollably, it was totally a game. It's totally fun. So I've never quite gotten over that. So, but we made baby steps, right? Climbed a little bit, but there was a lot of other things that were involved in the challenge course. There was a trust fall, which I actually did well on that. You drop off of about a 5-foot tall pedestal, and your classmates have to catch you. Well, I'm a large guy, so I just sent it full send backwards, and they caught me. But I think one of the scariest ones for me was trying to climb a wall and you use your other classmates to boost you up, and then on the other side of that wall at the top, there's a couple of classmates that have help pull you up over the wall, and it's about a 15-foot wall. So there's a section there once you're lifted up to full extension where you can't really reach the top. So you have to rely on your people to pull you up so you can at least get your arms up and try to throw your leg over. And that was scary because you're not strapped into anything. You're totally likely to fall backwards. Lots of skinned knees and bruises after that, but you know, they were able to get my big ass up and over the wall. So, and then there were some lower to the ground team working exercises that were involved in there too. All of that took place in like 4 hours. So after the 4 hours, I was spent. It was time to go back to the dorm room, crank down the air conditioning, and just veg for the rest of the day. But during this class, the first week, we spent a lot of time. We got broken into different tables, and I will give credit to the instructor, Kevin Tingen, with the Justice Academy. And those of you who are listening outside of North Carolina, North Carolina Justice Academy is funded through taxes and etc. to train and also work with Criminal Justice Education Standards Division to put out lesson plans not only for in-service or continuing education, but for further education from our basic law enforcement training. And they do a really good job of it. And so we learned a lot about, teamwork, working within your agency. One of the guys that was at my table, he's a former chief and really kind of took me under his wing and gave me advice and helped me out, and I'm very thankful for him. So, um, Chief slash Major Puckett, I appreciate you. Um, we learned from the North Carolina Chapel Hill School of Government. The attorneys from there came in and taught several classes and talked to us about interacting with our communities and social media and all these different things, and gave us different perspectives on things. And overall, I met some good friends during the class. We had some good times, learned a lot, and it kind of inspired this, pulling the trigger on this podcast, because I do feel like there's a lot that goes missing from the basic classes that you take for, say, like first line supervision or something like that. There is a lot that's left open to interpretation if you're not really digging into things. So, thus, this, Pathfinder Leadership helps me push myself and push you all further. That's what this is about. But at the end of the class, we had a ceremony and a graduation, and we all went our separate ways and went home. And when I got back home and finally got to relax, I realized how much of a toll the last 3 months had taken on me. And this is where we get kind of into the mental health side of things. Is I started feeling more exhausted than normal. Started just needing to sleep, needing to recoup, and sat down with my wife the other day, and we talked for 2.5 hours. No TV, just she and I breaking bread, talking. And there's a lot of things that I didn't quite realize that I was doing. Um, you know, wasn't fully acting myself, or, you know, only acting like a part of myself. And I think part of that was the stress from the class and the stress of being gone. Because, I mean, in 22 years of being together, this is the most we've been apart. So it's tough. And many folks have talked to me about going to the FBI National Academy. And while I believe that it would be a a wonderful class, I don't want to be away from my wife for 3 months. If that's what it takes for me to be a chief, is to have that certification in order to push myself to be the best I can, then being a chief is not in the cards for me. If that's the only way to become a chief is to have the National Academy, then I guess I won't be a chief. Because to me, being home with my wife and my pup is more important than being gone for 3 months for training. And, I will do the best that I can to improve myself here, and reading books and applying myself in every way that I possibly can. However, I don't believe that one class is the only way to achieve success. Um, the only class to measure success. So don't get me wrong. I am not crap talking anything about the FBI National Academy. I'm absolutely positive that it's a wonderful class. And if circumstances and mindsets change later, then, so be it. But as of right now, like, I want to be home with my family. Um, the other part of it, how I feel like I'm have been kind of a shell of who I normally am, is still dealing with residual stress from Helene and things like that. I, you know, didn't see the piles of dead bodies like some other people did, but the way that I see it is, I'm not going to compare my trauma to your trauma, or my trauma to someone else's trauma. The things that my officers and I saw and did during that time will stick with us forever. Um, it was rough, but we got through it together as a team. And I have no doubt, if something else major were to happen, that we would step up and handle it accordingly. Because we have some hellaciously talented and strong willed officers at my agency that refuse to go home, refuse to quit, and will just continue to fight to their last breath for each other, for the community that they serve, and I'm very proud of each and every one of them. And I've talked to you at the beginning about how I have I have gone through therapy and things like that, and I'm still going through therapy and still working through things, and it's important to do that. Um, One of the podcasts that I've been listening to recently is the Sean Ryan podcast. It's uh, really, really awesome. I mean, he really interviews some heavy hitters. But an older episode that I revisited, and I revisited it because of the man he was interviewing. And I'm sure I'll mess his name up, but it's Travis Howze, Howze. He was a Marine firefighter, went into law enforcement, and then ended up going back um, to the fire service. And I've followed him on social media for quite a while now because he does motivational speaking. I think he has a podcast as well, and I can just really relate to him. He's a funny guy, and man, he gets it. He understands law enforcement, like the little jokes about you want to tell which one is the law enforcement officer when you go to a party. He's going to be the person that he or she is going to be the person at the back of the room sipping their drink quietly, watching everybody else, not really engaging with people. Um, yeah, yeah, that's me. Now after a few drinks, that mindset changes. I turn into a social butterfly. We're having a good time. You're down and out. No, you're going to come over here and you're going to hang out with me, and we're going to have a blast together. But initially, looking at the room, I'll tell you my personal experience. Like, if I go to a party or a get together where there's not any ex-military or first responders there, I watch and observe people, and it's almost like, wow, they can have a good time without any worries of the outside world and what's going on, just oblivious and kind of envious, What would that be like? Um, and then there's the other side of me that, the socially awkward, doesn't want to talk to people. It just wants to, should have stayed at home, made the plans 2 weeks ago, and then now the day's here and you're trying to figure out a way to get out of it. Um, so there's that side of it. But liquid courage usually enables me to talk to folks, to be more engaging and things like that. So if you see me at a party and I'm super engaging and happy and blah, 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 and I'm not at work, then I've probably been drinking. And again, I stated if I'm not at work, if I'm at work, no drinking. If I'm off work and I'm happy and engaging, probably had a little bit to drink. Now, I do say this, I've brought up the use of alcohol and law enforcement. That is a crutch for many of us, and I will say the next part out of complete understanding because I've been there and I'm currently there. I am an alcoholic. Uh, I'm a different alcoholic though. I'm not a person who must drink at all times. I am a binge drinker. So which means I can go 6 months without having a beer. And then if the social settings are just right, I will drink way more than I should. And once you're an alcoholic or a substance abuse addict or something like that, you will always have that addiction, that demon that fights you from inside. Um, Identifying the fact that you are one is important. That's a big step. Now, I've never been through the 12-step process or anything else. I've been lucky in the fact that I've been able to conquer most of that through, my own will and with my wife and the Lord and friends and family. But most of it has been from making an ass out of myself and having to, you know, pull myself up and be like, okay, no more. But if you have a friend or a family member that is a little heavy on the bottle, you need to talk to them. And those conversations are so hard. They are. Well, it doesn't matter if it's a family member or not. You need to talk to them, but you don't need to judge them and try to create a, you know, antagonistic environment for them. You need to approach it with love. And I have had the misfortune, I guess, or fortune to be able to come in contact with numerous addicts throughout my career, and they will they will make the decision to quit, and it's their decision to make when they are ready to. You can't make someone stop. They have to make that decision. Now, I've gotten to a point where I can have a couple of beers and not have to turn that switch and turn into, full blown binge drinker. But it's taken a while. And I'm not saying it won't happen again, but we as first responders are very easily subjected to alcohol and substance abuse because it is a numbing agent. We use it as an escape mechanism for dealing with the shit that is in our lives on a daily basis. I will tell you from personal experience, this shit's still going to be there when you sober up. So I would suggest swallowing your pride, getting yourself into therapy, and talking to someone about what is going on and getting help. There is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of when it comes to alcohol abuse, substance abuse, whatever it may be, that is keeping you from truly getting happiness. That it is a numbing agent. It's not going to bring you happiness. Temporary joy, maybe. And again, I'm not saying this from a level of judgment. I have been there. I have done my time on the bathroom floor. But only you, just like Smokey the Bear said, only you can prevent forest fires. Only you can decide that enough's enough and I need help. So if you're listening to this and maybe you've been talked to, maybe you have self-identified that there's an issue, are you gonna take responsibility and acknowledge that there might be an issue and take steps? I would encourage you to do so because I can assure you somebody loves you, really wants you to get help, and really wants you to turn that corner and experience some true joy, some true relief from the trauma and the stress, and to be you again, not a shell of yourself. Like, I've been in the past. So I'm not going to go the full hour this time. Just wanted to touch base on a few things. We've talked about humility. We've talked about a wonderful training opportunity at the Justice Academy, and how it's, the people that were there, was able to get re-inspired and work on some things. But also we've touched in a little bit of trauma and how to get through some things. Again, I've said it at the beginning, and I'll reiterate this. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, but I know a thing or two because I've been through a thing or two. And I would encourage you to reach out, get some help, and take care of yourself. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, we're not going to be any benefit to anybody else. So if you're not walking the walk yourself, it's very hard to talk that talk, because people know better and you know better. So let's get our shit squared away. Get your head on right and get prepared to get back in the fight. So until next time, I love y'all. Stay safe and keep blazing the way forward. Don't stop. Take care. God bless you.